Oh, sorry about that commotion. I don't know if I went live on the wrong page, but here I'm back again. So yeah, we had a bit of an incident, but we were just talking about that too, how contention can end up in a family. Anyway, we just carry on. So I just finished reading Alma 50, 17 to 20, and I was just talking about how the Lord promised that as long as you know, the Nephites would, oh hang on, what does it say here? And thus we see them, verse 19 it says, and thus we see how merciful and just are the dealings of the Lord to the fulfilling of all his words unto the children of men. Yea, we can behold that his words are verified, even at this time which he spake unto Lehi, saying, Blessed art thou and thy children, and they shall be blessed, inasmuch as they shall keep my commandments, they shall prosper in the land. But remember, inasmuch as they will keep my commandments, they shall be cut off from the if they will not keep my commandments, they shall be cut off from the presence of the Lord. Okay? And yeah, so it's kind of like, just be careful, you know, when things are going really well, then always be mindful that things could go wrong, and it's just through us not keeping the commandments or forgetting the Lord. So we can be a bit like that sometimes, yeah? And, you know, when those times of when the Lord chastises us, you know, take it as just a reminder, really. Just a reminder to just not forget him. Keep the commandments. I know it sounds like that's pretty easy to do, but in some family situations it's not easy. And things may be difficult sometimes to just do those simple things. But, you know, do your very best. Anyway, Chiankum has been introduced in this chapter of Alma 50, and we'll learn more about him when we go into Alma 51. So the question was, for those just coming in, I was talking to Etty and a few other people earlier, but then I had to go off because we had some commotion here. But I'm doing Alma 51, and the chapter encourages us to look at verses 1 to 12. And the question it gives us is, what do these verses teach us about what can happen within our family when we have contention? You know, at the same time, as we go through this chapter, like I explained before in the other live that I just cut off, that as I'm reading, a lot of it's about war and what happens with Moroni and his people, but it also relates to us as well. And just try and think or listen in for the parts of the chapter when, you know, you look for the things, identify the things that brought in the contention and how those things are likened to our own families, okay? It doesn't take much for contention to come in families, even the closest of families, you know, there'll be something. When you look at your own family, you just think, what are some of those things that do bring in the contention? And ponder those things as I'm reading through the chapter, okay? But thank you for joining us anyway. We are here and we are going to get through this and we are going to learn something from it, yeah? If you have any questions, please just ask. And at the beginning of the last live, I did say that, you know, we're not perfect. Nobody's perfect. And in this whole page, in this whole world, no one is perfect. So we're kind of just, you know, learning by trial and error. And we're following the Come Follow Me because it gives us guidance. You know, worldwide we are doing this, following this curriculum, okay? And it's probably come at a time when we need it most, eh? These Come Follow Me lessons. You know, we're able to teach ourselves in our families, in our homes. But I also understand that some homes don't have the support, which is one reason why I've kind of like started this page up just to open up to anybody who's interested, okay? They don't even have to be members of the church. They're just anyone who's interested in learning something new and making changes to encourage the change. Okay, so let's go to chapter 51. And remember, like I said, it is asking us to look for what these verses teach us about what can happen within our families when it comes to contention, when we have contention. I can think of many things right now. just off the top of my head, and I haven't even started reading the chapter. Okay. Let's go to chapter 51, Alma 51. And we have king's men. So it says here, the king's men seek to change the law and set up a king. Now these king's men, I'm not sure if you know anything about them, but they wanted things changed in the law. You'll find out as you read along, so listen into what they, who they are. But these men were people who were a little bit entitled. They were like born out of royalty or some kind of position, high standing. So that's the king's men. Pahoran is the chief judge at that time. Pahoran and the free men are supported by the voice of the people. Okay, so you see who's on the good side. Moroni compels with the king men to defend their country or to be put to death. Moroni pretty much just tells it as it is. He's a 25-year-old who just can't be bothered with, mucking around. Let's just do the business. That's what Moroni's attitude is like. He's a good leader. Amalekite and the Lamanites capture many fortified cities. Amalekite is the king of the Lamanites, and his Lamanites capture many fortified cities. See, contention can get in somehow and bring weakness to your family. It can. Jankim repels the Lamanite invasion and slays Amalekite in his tent about 67 to 66 BC. Just pause me when you want me to explain something, okay? Verse 1. And now it came to pass that in the commencement of the 25th year of the reign of the judges of the people of Nephi, they having established peace between the people of Lehi and the people of Morianton concerning their lands. Okay, just pause here for a second. In chapter 50, I didn't read the whole thing, but there began to be some contention between these two cities, Lehi and Morianton. And they just weren't happy about a few things, so they started the contention. This is just telling us that it was all sorted. Concerning their lands, and having commenced the 25th year in peace. Verse 2. Nevertheless, they did not long maintain an entire peace in the land, so it was just short-lived. For there began to be a contention among the people concerning the chief judge Pahoran. It's always someone complaining, right? For behold, there were a part of the people who desired that a few particular points of the law should be altered. Verse 3. But behold, Pahoran would not alter nor suffer the law to be altered. Pause here for a second. It has to be some kind of different people to want the law to be changed. They're not happy with it. Something that has been going on for a long time somehow just needs to be changed. So they've got a problem with the current rule system. Okay, therefore he did not hearken to those who had sent in their voices with their petitions concerning the altering of the law, which means he's not, he doesn't really care for their petition. Verse 4, therefore those who were desirous that the law should be altered were angry with him, and desired that he should no longer be chief judge over the land. Therefore there arose a dispute, a warm dispute, not a cold one, but a warm dispute concerning the matter, but not unto bloodshed. So it wasn't that bad that they wanted to kill each other. But there's a warm dispute in the air, because some people are angry that they're not getting their way. Verse 5. Does that happen in our families? Can contention erupt because of things like this? Verse 5. And it came to pass that those who were desirous that Pahoran should be dethroned from the judgment seat were called king's men. For they were desirous that the law should be altered in a manner to overthrow the free government and establish a king over all the land. So they're called kingsmen because they want a king. They want this new system instead of the reign of the judges. They don't want judges anymore. They just want a king. One ruler. And you'll find out why they want this. Verse 6. And those who were desirous that Pahoran should remain chief judge over the land took them the name of freemen. And thus was the division among them for the freemen had sworn a covenant or covenanted to maintain their rights and the privileges of their religion by a free government. So there's division. Can that bring contention in your family? Pretty much, it can. Verse 7, and it came to pass that this matter of their contention was settled by the voice of the people, and it came to pass that the voice of the people came in favor of the freemen, and Pahoran retained the judgment seat, which caused much rejoicing among the brethren of Pahoran, and also many of the people of liberty, who also put the king's men to silence. But they durst not oppose, but were obliged to maintain the cause of freedom. Verse 8. Now those who were in favour of kings were those of high birth, and they sought to be kings, and they were supported by those who sought power and authority over the people. So they were people of high standing who would most likely be affected in some way to maybe gain kingship and high standing. So they had already put themselves above others. Can some people be like that in the family? Put themselves above others and kind of like cause some kind of contention? Pretty much. Verse 9. But behold, this was a critical time for such contentions to be among the people of Nephi. For behold, Amalickiah had again stirred up the hearts of the people of the Lamanites against the people of the Nephites. And he was gathering together soldiers from all parts of the land, his land, and arming them, and preparing for war with diligence, for he had sworn to drink the blood of Moroni. And just to remember, if you're not sure who Amalickiah is, for those who don't know him, he used to be a Nephite. He used to be one of Moroni's people. And so he's kind of like dissented and gone off to be the king of the Lamanites. And now he only wants to cause contention. Why? For his own personal gain? Is that another reason why people in families can cause contention? Maybe. Verse 10. But behold, we shall see that his promise which he made was rash. Nevertheless, he did prepare himself and his armies to come to battle against the Nephites. Verse 11. Now his armies were not so great as they had hitherto been, because of the many thousands of who had been slain by the hand of the Nephites. But notwithstanding their great loss, Amalickiah had gathered together a wonderfully great army, and insomuch that they feared not to come down to the land of Zarahemla. So, verse 12, even Amalickiah did himself come down at the head of the Lamanites, and it was in the 25th year of the reign of the judges. That might not be a smart move for him, but you'll find out later what happens because of it. And it was the same time that they had begun to settle the affairs of their contentions concerning the chief judge Pahoran. Verse 13, and it came to pass that when the men were called, kingsmen had heard that the Lamanites were coming down to battle against them. They were glad in their hearts. I'm not sure if you caught that. So the king's men have heard that the Lamanites are coming down to battle with the Nephites, and they're very happy about that. And they were glad in their hearts. Wow, what does that say? They are extremely happy, and they refused to take up arms, for they were so wroth with the chief judge. Remember, they're not happy. They didn't get their way. And also with the people of liberty, that they would not take up arms to defend their country. Now, this part kind of like makes me giggle a bit, because this is how Moroni responds to their attitude, okay? Etsy, I'm back. Sorry about that. Hey, Chuppy. So we're just finished, or just about halfway through Alma 51, but we're back again. Sorry about that commotion before. Verse 14, and this is a good part. And it came to pass that when Moroni saw this, so he's kind of like saw the attitude of the king's men that didn't want to fight. They didn't want to take up arms and defend their country. So this is what he had to say to them. And this is a sign of a good leader, right? Correct the wrong straight away. Verse 14, and it came to pass that when Moroni saw this, and also saw that the Lamanites were coming into the borders of the land, he was exceedingly wroth because of the stubbornness of those people, whom he had laboured. Oh, see, whom he had laboured with so much diligence to preserve. Yea, he was exceedingly wroth with his whole soul. His soul was filled with an anger against them. Pause there for a second. Why would Moroni be angry with people who didn't want to defend the country? Why do you think? Do you think it's because he worked so super hard to fortify all these cities, and then you come to the attitude of just a small group of people who just didn't want to take up arms and support him? Anyway, I don't think he's angry with their choice. I think he's angry with their attitude of not even having a desire to help. Anyway, that's just what I think. You might think something else. Verse 15, and it came to pass that he sent a petition with the voice of the people unto the governor of the land, desiring that he should read it and give him, Moroni, power to compel those dissenters to defend their country, or to put them to death. That's all he wants to do with them. If you're not going to fight for your country, he will put them to death. Verse 16, for it was his care to put an end to such contentions. It was his business to do that. And dissensions among the people. For behold, this had been hitherto a cause of all their destruction. There you go. He's saying he needs to stamp out the contention because this is the cause of all their destruction. When things go wrong, it is because of this. And it came to pass that it was granted according to the voice of the people. Verse 17. And it came to pass that Moroni commanded that his army should go against those kingmen, to pull down their pride. I love this verse. Pull down their pride and their nobility and level them up. Level them with the earth, or they should take up arms and support the cause of liberty. Verse 18. And it came to pass that the armies did march forth against them, and they did pull down their pride and their nobility, insomuch as they did lift their weapons of war to fight against the men of Moroni. They were hewn down and levelled to the earth. There you go. Verse 19, and it came to pass that there were 4,000 of those dissenters who were hewn down by the sword, and those of their leaders who were not slain in battle were taken and cast into prison. For there was no time for their trials at this period. No time to muck around. Verse 20, because they're already mucking around by dealing with this contention, yeah? So verse 20, and the remainder of those dissenters, rather than being smitten down to the earth by the sword, yielded to the standard of liberty, and were compelled to hoist the title of liberty upon their towers and in their cities. See, they've made a turn, and to take up arms in defence of their country. Hello. Okay. All this talk about trying to fix their problems between themselves, and then something's going to happen. You just watch. Verse 21, and thus Moroni put an end to those kingmen, just wasting his effort and his energy on them, that they were not any known by the appellation of kingmen, and thus he put an end to the stubbornness and the pride of those who professed the blood of nobility. But they were brought down to humble themselves unto their brethren, and to fight valiantly for their freedom from bondage. So I think they got a little bit distracted in their pride, because they were born of some kind of high status, that they were trying to follow through with that, but Moroni had to stamp that out, because that's how contention and that's how destruction among their people began. And the same thing is with our families. That can, when you put yourselves above others, and that can cause some contention. Just humble yourselves, just like these guys have decided to change. Okay, verse 22. Behold, it came to pass that while Moroni was thus breaking down the wars and contentions among his own people, here we go, and subjecting them to peace and civilization, and making regulations to prepare for war against the Lamanites. Behold, the Lamanites had come into the land of Moroni, which was in the borders of the seashore. So while Moroni was busy, trying to fix this problem with the king's men, these, the Lamanites got in. And now it's all going down, okay? And it's only because Moroni was distracted by the contention that was unnecessary in the first place that he had to resolve when, now it's given the Lamanites an opportunity to, break through. And they had trouble doing that before because those cities were so fortified. Anyway, let's hear what happens. Verse 23, and it came to pass that the Nephites were not sufficiently strong in the city of Moroni. There you go, because they're too busy yapping away and having contentions. Therefore Amalekite did drive them, slaying many. And it came to pass that Amalekite took possession of the city, gave possession of all their fortifications. So if you liken that to our own families, Amalekite would be like the influence of Satan, the enemy. They are the enemy for us, right? In our day. Just anything that can distract our families from choosing the right, making right decisions. Anyway, it's different for all families. Verse 24, and those who fled out of the city of Moroni came to the city of Nephihah, and also the people of the city of Lehi gathered themselves together and made preparations and were ready to receive the Lamanites to battle. Verse 25, but is it too late? Could be. But it came to pass that Amalekah would not suffer the Lamanites to go against the city of Nephihah to battle, but kept them down by the seashore, leaving men in every city to maintain and defend it. Verse 26, and thus he went on, taking possession of many cities, the city of Nephihah, the city of Lehi, and the city of Morianton, and the city of Omnah, and the city of Gid, and the city of Mulek, all of which were on the east borders by the seashore. So, liken all those cities to all your families that you love, or all your friends that you love, that, and sometimes, Satan will go to the weakest point in any family and just start there, niggle away. Oh, gosh. He's such a... Verse 27, and thus, we're nearly there, guys, and thus he had Lamanites obtained by the cunning of Amalekah, so many cities by their numberless host, all of which were strongly fortified after the manner of the fortifications of Moroni, all of which afforded strongholds for the Lamanites. And if you liken that to us, sometimes our homes are fortified, by the gospel. We do these things that we're meant to do to fortify our homes. And yet he still gets in. And yet he still makes, finds a way of getting in. Because all these cities were fortified in the manner of Moroni. And, some of our families are very strong. We have the gospel in our homes. We practice, we live the gospel as best we can. But still, Satan finds a way in. And even today, his influence can come in many ways. It can come in media, on TV, watching a TV, and then all these stupid things come up. It's just different for each family. But he knows our weaknesses, and he does prey on them. Okay, verse 28. And it came to pass that they marched to the borders of the land bountiful, driving the Nephites before them and slain many. Verse 29. But it came to pass that they were met by Tiankim. I love Tiankim, he's pretty smart, who had slain Morianton and had headed his people in his flight. Verse 30, and it came to pass that he headed Amalekah also, as he was marching forth with his numerous army, that he might take possession of the land bountiful, and also the land northward. Verse 31, but behold, he met with a disappointment, by being repulsed by Tiankim and his men, for they were great warriors. For every man of Tiankim they exceed the Lamanites in their strength and in their skill of war, insomuch that they did gain advantage over the Lamanites. Just awesome. Verse 32, and it came to pass that they did harass them, insomuch that they did slay them, even until it was dark. And it came to pass that Jehoiakim and his men did pitch their tents in the borders of the land bountiful. And Amalickiah did pitch his tents in the borders on the beach by the seashore, and after this manner were they driven. Some cool stuff going to happen soon. Verse 33, and it came to pass that when the night had come, Jehoiakim and his servant stole forth and went out by night and went into the camp of Amalickiah, and behold, sleep overpowered them because of their much fatigue, which was caused by the labours of heat of the day. Something cool is going to happen. Verse 34, and it came to pass that Jehoiakim stole privily into the tent of the king and put a javelin into his heart. Rewind. And he stole privily into the tent of the king and put a javelin to his heart. And he did cause the death of the king immediately, that he did not awake his servants. Ding! Wow. How smart is that? Verse 35, and he returned again privily to his own camp, and behold, his men were asleep, and he awoke them and told them all the things that he had done. Verse 36, and he caused that his army should stand in readiness, lest the Lamanites had awakened, and should come upon them. Yeah, just wait for the backlash. But actually we'll see what happens next. Last verse. And thus ended the 25th year of the reign of the judges of the people of Nephi. And thus ended the end of the days of Amalickiah. Yay! Amalickiah is gone. Shame on him. He didn't win after all, eh? He got his kingship, but yeah, that's about it. Shame on him. Anyway, let's go back to our question. Let's go back to our question. What did our questions say? So, what do these verses teach us about what can happen within our family when we have contention? What happens when we have contention, people? We do get distracted by that contention. And I think just the effort that Moroni had to make to fix that problem that they had with the king's men, it did take up effort. It was all unnecessary, and it could have been resolved earlier. But, you know, when the head of the home is kind of like distracted by those things, it does weaken. It does weaken the unit. You know, and having contention in the family, it does weaken the family. And I've known many instances, you know, I know in my family we have a lot of contention. You know, and it's a generational thing too sometimes. Like when one family doesn't like the other, it has just like a rippling effect of that problem. It can just spread through your family. I mean, that's just one situation, but there are many things that can bring contention into families. Contention is of the devil. There should be no place for it in your homes. You know, we're talking about this now because it's a way that we can resolve it. It's unnecessary. There doesn't need to be any contention. And we can get through it, you know, resolve it quickly. Because while we're distracted by the contention, at the same time, Satan's influence can eat away at the hearts of your family, you know, at people in your, you know, you just want your family to be happy. Well, that's me. That's what I think. Yes, you will have some problems along the way, but and the longer they are left, I think the deeper they get, and the more the wound opens. That's me. That's all I think. What do you have? Do you have any thoughts about that, on how contention can hurt a family? Completely, I think it can. Now, what it says here about the application side of this story, about this chapter, is that, it's inviting us to do this. How can we increase our unity? Do you think unity can resolve contention? I do, completely. And I also think that being unified will change that, change the contention in your family. So if there's one thing you can unite in it. I have a few experiences to share about this, and if you have any that come to your mind, then please feel free to share. I wrote down a few notes here today, to share as well, and I'll read them. But if anything comes to your mind, then please share how contention can actually hurt your family, and what are the efforts that you've done in uniting your family together. What are some ways that you are using to fortify your family, to keep your strong unit together? Like I mentioned before, Hina came forward. She's my friend in Tahiti who, she lives there with her family. And there's just simple things that she does to unify her family are those, elements of faith, like reading scriptures together with her family. Does that help? Immensely, it does help. It does help. In many ways, family prayer, those simple things, this is what she's doing to fortify your family. So what are the things that you do to fortify your family? So how can we increase our unity? And what can we do to fortify our own families in the manner of Moroni? And also be mindful too, because even in the story it talked about how those cities that Moroni did fortify were still the enemy was still able to penetrate them and break through the walls. So liken that to our families too. How can that happen? I tell you, it is happening. It is happening whether you like it or not. If you've got young families, then use that time wisely with your children while they're young to train them up. It's much easier to train up a child while they're young. Then wait till they become adults, and then it's hard to break a lot of habits, that adults create for themselves. Completely. I have adult children. I love all my children. They've been raised in the gospel from the age of 9. So prior to that age, which was a good time to actually make the change, from that age of 9, they're very willing to be raised in the gospel, and they did it really well. They loved being raised in the church, and it really did unify us. And to this day, we are still unified. Now, along the way, they've gone off and they're doing their own things in life. But to me, I think it doesn't change what's in their hearts, what they have learned, some basic principles that they've learned over time, and we are still very close to them. We had a gathering last night, and what happens when we are together is that we tend to show more appreciation for each other now. Now that they're grown, we talk about things, and we love the time that we have to talk with our children, my husband and I. We're getting older, and we just learn to love and respect them. And even though our lives are very different, we still choose to love each other. And that is the main factor in our family, is that we will always love each other, and we show that. And the kids, they're nearly 30, and they're still showing that kind of respect towards us as their parents, and that's come from raising them in the gospel so young. And even though they fall off the track, they will never forget those times, okay? So, how can you increase your unity? One thing that we did say to our kids was, please don't ever find yourself in a situation where you're fighting over things. One thing we have in our culture is land. And, I've seen a lot of families just break because of what they believe is land issues. And, the contention comes in because people are putting themselves above others. But I think if you maintain that humility, this is just me speaking myself, it could be different. If you maintain that humility, you will also hear what the Heavenly Father wants you to know as well in the situation. You'll also hear what He inspires you to do, because you won't know what to do all the time. And when you're unsure, it's good to just take time to ponder it and think what He would have you do rather than think of what you think is right. And I think in all these situations where contention comes in, it can be manageable if we are in tune with the Spirit. The Spirit will always tell us what is right. The Spirit will always tell us all things that you should do, and He will never tell you to do wrong. Honestly, I know that. Another thing I like to share about keeping the unit together, when my husband was, working, he was doing a lot of work for the church. His company was contracted to do work for the church, and he travelled the Pacific quite a bit. And the kids were probably in college, yep. And I had just had Lehigh at the time, and that can bring a bit of added pressure to families when your husband is away, or working away or whatever. He's not home a lot of the time. That can bring added pressure. So what my husband used to do every time he left is he would gather the kids together, as you do as a family. Gather the kids together and talk to them, counsel them, look after your mother, look after the home, get on well together, take care. He would always say to my eldest, take care of the family while I'm gone. And just hearing those words, it kind of like brings that assurance that your family will be safe. And we were always safe, We even sometimes functioned better than when he was home. Because we knew we had to work together, and we did it effectively. And there are times where you won't have your husband there, for whatever reason. So what are the things that you do to maintain, to fortify your family in those times of weakness, when there is one away? And for Hina, she also talked about how her children are away. When they are away, they do know that they are still close. And what keeps you fortified like that? That we're living in a day and age where families change like the wind, for whatever reason. And sometimes you can be like Morona, being distracted and trying to fix a problem, and in the end, something just creeps in. And I don't think you ever plan for these moments, but it is good to prepare and to prevent things like this happening, and fortify your family like none other, especially in these days when things, like I said, change like the wind. And it can happen to anybody. It can happen to the strongest person. I know, I've witnessed things happen to very strong members of the church, very strong priesthood holders. Things like this will happen to anybody, but only if we allow it to happen. And when it does happen, don't think it's the end of the world. There is a way to change things, There is. It's a way to stay unified, even through it all. Okay? Okay, there's one thing that came to my mind. And please share any thoughts about how to unify your family and how to fortify it, and how to not be distracted by the contentions that can bring you down, and how to resolve it quickly. Like for our family, I know for our family, my husband and I, all we talk about is our kids. And we don't want to see things hurt them. We don't want to see things harm our family, because we have a very close unit that we have worked on all our lives to maintain this unit with our kids. We love them dearly from day one. We have maintained that. We've made commitments to them from day one. One thing my husband and I did agree to from the very first start is that I will not work until the children are old enough. And so we maintained that. And my job was to stay home and care for the children. But we made that promise to each other to fortify our family, so he could provide for us, and then I could care for the needs of our kids. And, this world will tell you those things are not important, but it is important. Whatever you decide with your family is important. And it's whatever you decide, No one can come in and make your family do whatever. It's all up to you. And you own that. As a parent, you own that. And you follow through with those decisions that you've made. And should something happen, like somebody is not there anymore, how do you maintain that fortification that you have set for yourselves from day one? Will you distract? Will you leave that and do something else? or will you maintain what you already set in place from the beginning? Yeah. And it's really up to you as a family to decide what you will do to stay unified in this crazy world. Because remember, your kids go to school and they meet all sorts of good people and all sorts of bad people. And what you teach in your home will fortify them even when they're out there, among, the evil of the world. And just remember that it is part of our progression. We must have good and evil, so it is part of our daily living to have these situations, yeah? But I really believe that what you say to your children, what you teach them, in the beginning will have that lasting impression on them. And I'll tell you, I mentioned my uncle in the beginning of the life and how much of a great example he was for me growing up. I am the result of what he has taught me as a young person. He wasn't good with language. He wasn't good at talking English much, but I saw it all in his example. And I'm nearly 50 now, and it stayed with me all my life. So yeah, he kept us unified by being the most faithful, humble man I've known all my life. And it stuck with me, and it still will. And I don't want my kids to ever forget that example that he set too. And we also discussed, my husband never met him before, but from the night that we were talking about him all night, my husband, he just knew that his example came from his mother. He doesn't know my grandmother. I didn't know my grandmother. But by the Spirit, he knew where that came from. And so follow those strong traditions that were good for your family. Follow those strong leaders, even like Moroni, that you had in your family. Teach your children about them and their example, so they will never be swayed. They will always know who they are. And when the world tells them that they are something else, they will not believe it. They will know who they are. And when you look at how you can strengthen your children in that way, and also remind them who their heavenly parents are and who Jesus Christ is, that is a sure foundation in which they will not fall. Despite whatever comes their way, they will not fall, in that testimony of him. And although my kids are not perfect, neither am I. But these strong teachings of the gospel have taught them and molded them to be the people they are today. They may be doing wayward things, but I tell you, there is something in their character that has taught them to know who they are and how connected they are to us. Teach them while they're young. And I don't know, you just have to do your best. And my husband and I, we do our best because we love our kids. And I'm sure you love your families too. I'm sure you love your children too. So teach them correct principles and let them govern for themselves. And they will love you more for giving them the opportunity to govern themselves. I know it. Because we feel it today. We know our kids love us 1,000% and even more. It's because we let them govern themselves. And then we let them find out for themselves, but we also show them by example of what we want them to be. But anyway, these are my thoughts on our unity. It's such a great topic of discussion, unity and fortifying your families, and anything to do with the family unit is a beautiful thing to talk about. Mine is certainly not perfect. It's not at all. You heard my husband just go off his nut at me just earlier, and it's because of we have teenagers still growing and learning, and he is trying to just find out what's happening in the world for himself. Even though he has good parents to tell him how to do things, he would still rather do things himself. And it kind of reminds me of myself a bit, because I was that kind of person who, yes, I was taught all the good principles as a young person growing up. I was taught all those good things. I knew everything I needed to know, but I wasn't listening because my ears weren't open and my eyes were lost in the world. And that's kind of like how I learned best. So Everyone learns differently. I'm here telling you what is good counsel, but at the end of the day, it's what you want to be involved in, what you want to do yourself, and what you want for your families. You know, I'm just the messenger. But I personally am a person who just learns by experience. You can tell me this thing, like it's like touching a hot plate. Someone will say, that plate is hot, don't touch it. But you know me, I would say, thank you for telling me, but then I've got to go and test it out myself. That's what kind of person I am. And I know in my DNA, shared with my son's DNA, that he is the same way. And so because I've been through it all myself, then I know how to teach him. And I know how to teach him, although things are very difficult in raising children these days. But it doesn't have to be. It just depends on, you know, what you want for how to raise your children. But I tell you, it's very hard to change adults. So teach them while they're young. These principles. Like my son's only 13 and I still think I've left it a little bit too late to teach him some things. I don't know. The earlier, the better, you know. But yeah, these are my thoughts about today's lesson. The chapter is beautiful. The names of the people, the leaders in the chapter are beautiful. Moroni is just an amazing young leader who is full of faith and full of vigor and full of, you know, just all the beautiful stuff. And he stamps things out quickly. With shame on me, I'm like nearly 50. And here's this young 25-year-old who just knows how to do the business and stamp things out quickly, you know, deal with it. Not me, I would say, oh, are you okay? And all these other things before I get to the point of what I want to say to them. And I admire that. Yeah. Anyway, these are my thoughts. In closing, I'd just like to be in my testimony that I know the church is very true. And I know there's nothing else that will bring you much joy in your life than knowing who you are and how connected you are to Heavenly Father and our Saviour Jesus Christ and the example that He has been to me. I mean, I've had a life where I was completely lost. I've been through the pits of the pits, and I don't think all my family know that too. Only I know. And I even find it difficult to talk to my children about these things that I've been through because I just don't want them to go there. I was the one who just went to touch the hot plate and everything. But I'm very grateful for the example of, you know, my beautiful family members who are no longer here. Like my uncle, he raised me and he showed me by example how to be today. That's how I get it now because I saw it in his example. And I knew that he just loved Heavenly Father and loved Jesus Christ because they showed him the way, or how to, a better way. And that's what I choose to follow too. For me and my family, choose ye this day who you will serve. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord as best we can. And I testify that these things are true. I love you all. And I say these things in Jesus' name. Amen. It's time for me to say the prayer. I started at 3. We've gone like an hour and 15 minutes, which is not so bad. Please continue to share some thoughts, and I'm happy to give some feedback if you need me to. And I'll close with a prayer, okay? Thank you for joining in. Thank you. Hey, sis. Hey, Beck. Hey, Uncle. I love you guys. I'll say the prayer. Our dear Father in heaven, we thank Thee for this wonderful time that we've had together to learn and share with each other and to be edified by the Spirit and to learn wisdom and help us to apply these teachings that we've learned today about our families and keeping them fortified and unified and to put aside contention. And we pray, Father, that would help us to in our efforts to do these things. And we're grateful for all our blessings and pray that thou would be with us this day. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. Bye. Mwah.